Hello everyone, it's Shannon here. I'm so excited to be on Simon Says blog today showing you guys how to make a really cute pear card using some brand new Waffle Flower products. First up is this Stitched Love stamp set. This is a cross-stitch stamp set. Waffle Flower has several other ones and I love all of them, but this one is especially cute. It has some pears and some strawberries in this stamp set, as well as some really great sentiments. There is a matching die. This is the Stitched Love die, and then I'm going to also use the Waffle Flower's Layering Wood Grain stamp set today to create a background. That's from Waffle Flower's previous release. I'm going to start with an A2 card base made from 110-pound white cardstock, and I'm going to use one of the creative corners here to kind of help me get this card base positioned in my MISTI. I'm just using this corner just in case I get my card base out of alignment. I can use that corner again to help me get everything right back in perfect alignment. And I can't use the edge of the MISTI this time because, as you can see, this layering wood grain stamp, I'm going to have it extend past both sides of the card base, so I can't butt it up against the side of the MISTI. I'm going to ink up this stamp. This is the first layer with Waffle Flower's Tickled Pink, so it's my lighter shade, and I'm just going to stamp it right in practically the center. I just eyeballed it. Now I'm going to ink it up and stamp it a second time. This is a very solid stamp, and so this just ensures that I have good coverage by stamping it twice. Now I'm going to clean it up and remove the stamp and grab the second layer. This is going to be my darker shade, kind of a red color. I'm going to pull that off, and just this stamp will fill in all those negative spaces that you see in that wood grain image. I'm just going to eyeball lining it up here. It's very easy to do. And once I get it perfect, I'll fold over my MISTI, pick it up, and then I will ink this up with my darker shade, which is actually going to be My Pleasure by Waffle Flower Crafts. So ink that up, and then I'll stamp this as well. And I will ink this up and stamp it twice, again to have nice solid image and good coverage. Now the way this stamp set was designed is that the edges can be lined up to make a continuous pattern. So now I'm done with this section of the wood grain, I'm going to, you can see how it ends with a pink at the top, so I'm going to line up my red layer directly up against that pink layer because they line up perfectly, and now I'm going to stamp my red layer again. And again, I'll be inking this up twice and stamping it twice. So now that I've stamped that part, now I'm going to go back to my pink layer and fill in that negative space. So I really love how well this stamp set was designed, so you can have a continuous pattern for a whole A2 card size or even bigger. So I'm going to stamp that one more time with the Tickled Pink so I have good coverage, and I'm finished now with that section of wood grain. Now this side, I flipped my card over to do the last section, and I'm going back to my pink layer because I ended that middle section there with the red layer, so the pink layer now goes right up against that red. And now I'll finish it up with this last layer of red, and I will stamp it, ink it up and stamp it twice. And that will complete my whole background for my card. This is almost going to be a one layer card. The only thing will be the images that I pop up with foam tape at the very end. So now my whole panel, or my whole card front, is finished, and I will set that side to dry a little bit while I start to work on the pears and the heart. So I have the Stitched Love stamp set here. I'm going to pull off two of the pears, and I'm going to position them at the bottom of some scrap cardstock here. I'm going to pick them up with my MISTI, and now I'm ready to start stamping. I'm going to use some Distress Oxides today. I'm going to start with Twisted Citron. I'm going to ink up both pears completely with the Twisted Citron, and then I'll stamp it. And then after I stamp these pears in the Twisted Citron, I'm going to do my favorite thing to do with these cross-stitch stamp sets, which is partial inking. So I'm just going to fold this over here, stamp them, And then without even cleaning the stamps off, I'm going to move to my darker shade, which is Peeled Paint, and I'm angling the ink pad and only inking up the lower portion of the pears. This is going to create kind of a gradation when I stamp it. I'll hold it up here to the camera so you can see a little bit better how I'm inking it. I'm going to do a little bit more here on the bottom. The gradation will also create the sense of volume. So this is a really nice way to add a little bit more interest to your cross-stitch images, and the cross-stitch pattern on the images really help to smooth that gradation as opposed to a very solid image. So I am going to heat set this now because this is distress oxides and they do stay wet longer. And now I'm ready to position the next layer for these pears. There's a little kind of like a spot that goes in to the base of the pear, and I'm going to use the acetate here. I pulled off all the stamps and I'm using the acetate, that printed image on the acetate, and moving it so it's filling in that negative space where the stamp's supposed to go. Once I get it perfect, I'll use the magnet to hold it down and then position the stamp directly onto that printed acetate image, then fold my MISTI over and pick up that stamp, and that stamp is now perfectly positioned for that pear. I'm going to repeat this process for the second pear here. So I'm using acetate, getting it, positioning it inside that negative space, then taking the stamp, putting it over that printed acetate image, and then folding my MISTI over and picking it up. So now I have the second layer for the pears all lined up. I'm going to ink it up with Peeled Paint here and stamp it. You definitely don't have to do this second layer for the pears. It's not necessary. It would just look kind of like a shine on the pear if you decided to leave it out, if you didn't want to fuss with it. So now I'm heat setting it again, and I will do the stems now. This is pretty much the last layer for the pears. And again, I'm using my acetate here, lining it up, the printed image up, then putting my stamp directly on top of that printed image. And once I get it all lined up, I'll fold my MISTI over and pick it up. And again, I will have that stem perfectly lined up. And I'll repeat that for the other stem for the other pear. This is a really great trick, and I do this every time I use these cross-stitch layering stamp sets that requires some precision in alignment. And I do it for almost all layering stamp sets as well, just to make sure I get all my layers perfectly aligned. I just used walnut stain to stamp the stems, and these pears are almost done. There's some little cute faces that come with this Stitch Love stamp set. I'm just stamping the same face twice in VersaFine ONYX Black on both those pears, and they are done. And again, I will heat set that all before I do any die cutting. So I'm going to now stamp the largest heart from the the Stitch Love stamp set. I'm inking it up with the My Pleasure, so the Waffle Flowers My Pleasure dye ink, and now I'm going to use Candied Apple Distress Oxide. I'm going to do some partial inking again and just ink up the lower portion and the right side of the heart, and that kind of creates like a little gradation on the heart. Again, add some nice interest and depth to your images. Now I've heat set these images, and now I'm ready to run them through my die cutting machine with the matching dies and cut them out. I really love having these matching dies for these cross-stitch sets. It really makes it useful, so when you get a perfectly stamped image, you just die cut it out and position it wherever you'd like. They're really wonderful. So that's how I'm going to arrange my little scene here. I'm going to kind of tentatively put them on my card front here to help me position my sentiment. I pulled a sentiment off from the Stitch Love stamp set. It says, "We are quite the pair," super cute. And I'm going to ink this up with the VersaFine ONYX Black and stamp it right there directly on the card front. Now that I've stamped the sentiment, I'm just going to heat set it here because I did use VersaFine ONYX Black, which is a pigment ink, and I don't want to accidentally smear it while I am positioning the pears. I've already gone ahead and added some foam tape to the back side of both pears. Now I'm just peeling off the backing and positioning them directly above that sentiment. This second pair will overlap the first just a tad, so they're nice and close together. I'm going to finish this card up by adding some foam tape to the back side of that heart, and then I'll position that heart directly between those two pairs. I really love this Stitched Love stamp set. Not only does it come with pairs, there's also some strawberries in the set as well, and there's some really cute sentiments. It works really well for Valentine's cards, and it's a good value with both the pears and the strawberries. This card in particular would make a really lovely Valentine's card. I hope you guys enjoyed my video today, and thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.